Happy Friday, friend. Welcome to my garden. Today we're actually gonna spend the day inside. One of my high school friends is coming over for dinner tonight, and we are making one of her favorite dishes. I was at a birthday party with her about 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about different recipes, and she had mentioned one of her favorite meals is pozole, and I may be pronouncing that incorrectly. And I was saying, I have never made that before. And I thought, do you want to come over and I'll attempt making it for you? It's her and her husband's anniversary this week, and they're just coming over for dinner, but I thought since it's their anniversary, I would make something, one, I've never made before, and try to challenge myself for fun and make her favorite dish. I also asked her, what do you want for dessert? And she said, Choco tacos. And I said to myself, how hard can that be? So we're gonna make those. Those are actually her husband's favorite dessert, and they don't make them anymore, so you can't buy them. So you and I are going to attempt to make Choco tacos today, along with pozole for dinner. If you're new here, welcome. This is my garden. I love to garden, I love to try new recipes, and I love to invite people over and feed my friends and family well. We're not only gonna make hopefully delicious pozole and Choco tacos, but we're gonna make some fresh salsa. I think we're gonna make some beans from beans we grew in the garden last year, and we're gonna be making some Spanish rice. So join me today as we get all of this done. And I'm having them over tonight. Normally when I invite people over, I like to do the cooking the day before, but I played hooky. I was gonna do the cooking the day before, but my brother invited me to go on a fun family adventure, and so I chose that instead, and I have no regrets. Need to get this trellised up. So we're gonna do all the cooking, all the cleaning today. But this meal, after looking at probably 10 or 15 recipes, looks relatively easy. So I think we can clean and cook all at the same time. And I see one of my pumpkins here, looks like it needs to be pollinated, and I'm not gonna walk by it and not hand pollinate it. There is a bee in this flower. This is a female flower, you know that because there is a baby pumpkin here. This is a male flower, you know that because there's no baby pumpkin on it. I'm gonna go ahead and tear away the blossom, and I'm going to pollinate this pumpkin. Hello, bee. There's a native bee in there. That's not one of my honeybees. And we're gonna go ahead and just hand pollinate this. And then I'll leave this male flower right in there, so if another pollinator gets in there, it's more likely to get pollinated. It's amazing, I haven't been out here in like 4 days because life has been busy and so much has changed. I also need some onions. I'm gonna grab my onions that have started to flower, because these need to be used up first. They will not store if they have started to flower. And I think I'm gonna grab, let's see. I need it for salsa, I need it for our soup. So let's grab 4. The last thing I think I need for today's dinner are some jalapenos for our salsa. But also I just want to make some grilled jalapenos because those are delicious. 1 per person should be more than enough. If you're wondering, isn't it August? Yes, it's August, and we're making pozole, which is basically a soup, but it's only supposed to be the high of 72 today, and this is what my friend requested, so this is what I'm making for her. We've got these beautiful veggies we need to wash up first. It's supposed to get in the high 90s this weekend, but today it's not supposed to be very warm. So it's a good day to make it. We do need those onions for our soup paste. That's why I wanted to get those harvested first. We're not gonna make our salsa for a little bit. I think I'm gonna make a roasted salsa. That's what I'm thinking, just to elevate it just a little bit. We'll just see what time allows. But the first thing I really wanna do is actually get our soup base and our meat going because that's gonna take the longest, so I can have that going while I do a bunch of other things. My thinking was, if I was gonna prep most of this yesterday, I could have prepped the whole dessert yesterday because it's a frozen dessert. If you've never had a Choco taco, basically you take a waffle cone, you make it into a taco shape, it's filled with ice cream, covered in chocolate and peanuts. You used to be able to buy them, but you can't buy them anymore. So I was thinking I could have prepped all that yesterday. I could have also prepped this soup yesterday and just done the finishing touches today. But because I decided to prioritize family time over that, we're gonna get the soup and everything made today. I was thinking, even though I've never had pozole, I've never gotten it at a restaurant, I've never eaten it, it probably would be better the second day, just letting all those flavors marry, but I'm sure it's gonna be just as delicious making it the first day, because we're gonna cook this low and slow all day long. I actually don't even know what time my friends are coming over. I should probably text them and say, hey, what time are you coming over for dinner tonight? I have a 4.5 pound pork shoulder here. I'm getting my cast iron preheated because we're gonna brown this up. And I'm not gonna roast this whole. This was prepared by the butcher with twine. I'm actually gonna take all of this off. So I'm gonna cut this into chunks. The recipe that I'm following, which I will link for you down below, says to roast this whole, but I wanna make sure this roast gets tender quicker. So I'm gonna cut it into just a couple pieces, and that way it will cook a little bit faster. And I'm gonna cut some of this fat off because there's plenty of fat running through this roast that'll add plenty of flavor. Probably 4 pieces is good. Some of the recipes I looked at, I just washed my hands so I could season this up, said when you serve your pozole, you're gonna cut it into cubes and you're going to have big chunks of meat when the soup is served. But this recipe said you actually shred the meat, and I think I would like that texture a little bit better. So that's why I went with this recipe. When it came to the actual ingredients, most of the recipes were very, very similar. This was the only one that I saw that really talked about shredding the pork. So that's why I printed this one. This is just some homemade seasoned salt. It's got paprika, salt, pepper, garlic, onion, and I can link this recipe for you down below too if you're interested in it. But let's get this into our very, very hot Dutch oven now. Here is one of the main stars of the show when it comes to this dish. We have ancho chilies, guajillo chilies. These are dried chilies I just got in my grocery store. And then this recipe called for 2 chilies that I couldn't find, and I went to 2 different grocery stores called, I'm gonna have to spell it for you and then guesstimate how it's pronounced. D-E space A-R-B-O-L, d'Arblay, and M-O-R-I-T-A, more. I'm not sure how to pronounce either of those, and I am not sure where to find those. I did not have time to order them online, which is what I would have done, but I didn't have time to do that. So I went ahead and Googled what are good substitutes, and I was recommended the California chili pods. So I got those instead. And I'm sure this is gonna be delicious using those peppers as a substitute. So what we need to do is actually boil and soften these. So we're gonna get this going while that is browning. So I'm going to remove the seeds and stems as best as I can. get them into this pot. These feel really, really fresh because they're not dried out like paper. I bought these peppers before and they almost crumble and crack. These are soft and pliable, which makes me think that they're fresher than some of the other peppers I've bought in the past. And I don't know if I should be wearing gloves when I do this. I don't think any of these are too spicy, or at least hopefully they're not, or we're gonna find out here at some point. And I probably should be doing this in a bag or into a compost bowl, but I'm not. Oh my goodness, they smell so good. They almost smell like a smoky raisin, these ones right here. I'm gonna put just a little bit of broth in the bottom of this pot because I don't want those bits to burn. This piece of meat, I'm not gonna get super browned, and I think that's gonna be okay. I'm just gonna get all this in there. I wanted to save the drippings on the bottom of this pot. And so we're gonna get that in there, and we're gonna get going on our peppers. We're already working on them. We are going to keep going on our peppers. And I'm not worried if a few seeds get in here because we are going to strain this. This, my friend, is not traditional. But I'm gonna add some raisins into that because I think with all the ingredients that are going into this, a little bit of sweetness would be good. And these are just giving me such good chili, smoky, raisiny vibes that I added about a half a cup of raisins to that. So I don't know, that could be a mistake, it might not be. I'm also gonna use broth to simmer this in instead of water because I have it, and I think that would be delicious. Why not add some broth to it? So it calls for 4 cups of water. So I have 4 cups of homemade chicken broth here. I'm gonna get that in here. And this recipe in particular, I just reread it. It did not say to run this sauce through a sieve, but like 4 or 5 other recipes I read said to do that. So we might do that. I'm gonna add some water. And I think I regret not wearing gloves already. I just washed my hands really well, hoping that I got any chili pepper off my hands. So I'm gonna take this over here and get this on to simmer. This recipe also says we're gonna add our onions into our garlic into this and boil this. But I think I wanna saute my onions and my garlic in some fat. I think that will draw out a little bit more flavor. So let me get this cutting board clean. We're gonna prep our onions and we're gonna get those sauteing in this pork fat that's in here. I did remove the pork again from this pot. These little pepper flakes, I'm gonna give to my chickens. It's really good for them. Chickens can't taste heat. They don't have that ability to taste spicy things. And so getting them the pepper flakes is really, really good for them actually. So I'm gonna get these to the chickens. And now I'm realizing I'm touching these seeds and stuff again, but I think that'll be okay. It is what it is at this point. I'm gonna go ahead and get going on our salsa right now. And I'm gonna do a little bit of a char on my salsa. So I'm gonna use my carbon steel griddle here to do that. I've got A little bit more oil I'm gonna add into this pot for our onions that are sliced. So the char for the salsa, I'm just gonna put my onion slices down here. I'm also gonna go ahead and put 1 large jalapeno here, and I'm gonna get my onions in here. And I'm gonna blister my tomatoes as well. So I have to take all of, well, I'd have to do this anyway, but I've gotta get the stems off of them. I'm not trying to totally cook these. I just want to get a little bit of a blister on them just to add a little bit more flavor. Now we're going to add some of our aromatics. This is toom, which is just basically garlic, olive oil, and lemon juice. I made this for a dinner party and I need to get this used up. So I'm gonna add a good tablespoon of that. I'm gonna use that in place of my garlic that the recipe calls for. And then I also wanna get some seasonings in here. So this recipe calls for cumin. So I'm gonna add cumin. It does not call for coriander, but I love coriander, so I'm gonna add some of that. This is fresh ground cumin and fresh ground coriander. I buy my cumin and coriander in whole spice form, and then I grind them up myself, and it makes a world of difference. I just started doing that, and I did it by mistake the first time, and it's now my go-to favorite. So I just added some smoked paprika. That was not in the recipe either, but I thought it would be delicious. And then I bought myself a Mexican oregano for this dish because I didn't have any oregano at all. And I'm gonna get 2 big pinches in there. And I can already smell the garlic in this. It smells so good. And I think by toasting the spices instead of boiling them, hopefully we get a little bit more flavor out of them. So I will link the recipe that I'm being inspired by, but I'm gonna talk to you through, if you're new, what I do to change the recipe, because I have a very hard time following a recipe to a T. And I think our tomatoes are done. I've been rotating this pepper to try to get it charred on all sides. I'm gonna turn this off. I need to buy myself another set of tongs because I only have one and I already used it. I have one bunch of one bunch of washed cilantro. Got a fresh lime here. Squeeze that in there. I might need 2. I think I'm gonna get 1 more. That just does not seem like enough. The reason I'm doing most of these separate is I can get a better even chop on each ingredient than putting everything in here at once. I'm gonna add some seasoned salt, mix that together, and we're gonna give this a taste and let this chill all day, and all those flavors will marry and become delicious. I got a new chip and dip bowl as a gift, and I can't wait to use it with this salsa for the first time. Wow, that's the first salsa I've made. I made some pico, which is basically the same thing, but that is delicious. I just added a little bit more seasoned salt. I'm gonna mix this up, pop this in the fridge, and this is ready for dinner tonight. I almost forgot to add vinegar to my salsa, so I just added some of that tune to my salsa and I got that mixed in. And now we need to add some vinegar to our pozole. And then the last ingredient we're gonna add to this, other than our chili sauce and our pork, before we actually start braising this, are a few bay leaves. So this soup is really easy so far. There's not a ton of ingredients. That liquid I just added was some white distilled vinegar. I can get my pork back in here. It smells so good already in here, it's incredible. These peppers are nice and soft now. I did just take a second to stop and load my dishwasher and turn it on because I did not start with a completely empty dishwasher. It was about half full. And because my friends are coming over for dinner tonight, I wanna try, let's see if I can do this without making a mess, and clean as I go. I need to get a pair of tongs in bulk on Amazon or something because one set is not enough. Because I would normally probably use tongs to transfer this in here, but I did not do that. And I think I am going to strain this after I blend it heavily. Now, highly recommend letting this cool a bit before doing this. I'm not gonna do that. So what I'm gonna do is put the lid on, put this on, but not close it tight. Otherwise it's gonna make a mess, and I'm gonna start really low. Because if you start blending stuff when it's hot, it has a tendency to explode. So go ahead and let yours cool down before you start blending it, but how I'm gonna do it is just start it on one and just slowly work its way up. Okay, I'm gonna taste this. I think the raisins was a good choice. It just adds a little level of sweetness. No one's gonna know there's raisins in it. That's delicious. I'm gonna come back with a spatula to scoop all that out, and we're gonna strain this. You tell me what you would do. Some recipes called to do this, some didn't. And I'm gonna go ahead and do it. Gotta get a spatula out or a spoon. I think I'm gonna get this wooden spoon because it's gonna have more surface area. Hopefully this just leads to a better texture in the end. So I'm gonna scrape all that goodness off the bottom, but this is the stuff that's left behind. So I'm glad I strained this. It is an extra step, but it will lead to a hopefully smoother, more silky texture, which I think is good. So that's part of the seeds and the skins and stuff that is gonna go ahead, and I'm just gonna compost it. I'll put it in the chicken bucket, and if they wanna eat it, they can eat it. Look at that. Now that right there would make a delicious enchilada sauce if you added all the cumin and spices to it and diluted it a little bit. But after I started saying that, I realized I did not bring up enough broth. And I had one here that was in my fridge that I want to use up first. And now this is a soup, so we are going to dilute this with some broth. I just carried up 4 pints. And I'm going through broth so quickly that I'm going to have to make broth here pretty shortly. Yeah, I'm super glad I strained out that pepper sauce, because I can already tell it's super luxurious here. silky smooth. Sometimes I don't always want to take the effort to strain things, but I usually never regret it. So I brought up enough broth and some diced tomatoes because we are gonna make a Spanish rice and beans to go along with tonight's dinner. I'm gonna turn this on and get this to a boil. And I'm gonna put one more pint in here because this is a soup. And I think I'm gonna add another cup of water because this is going to thicken up. I'm gonna get this to a boil and then we're gonna throw this in the oven and we're gonna let this slow braise for the rest of the day. Maybe I'm gonna add a little more water. We're gonna switch gears here in just a second to make our dessert. But before we do that, I'm going to prep the tomatoes for the Spanish rice. I have some diced tomatoes here that I made last year from last year's tomatoes, and I want them smooth. So I'm gonna put the whole jar in there, juice and everything, blend this up, set this aside, and we get to our Spanish rice, we will use that. I also, when I was dicing up onions, I diced up a little onions and I cut the top off a jalapeno. We're gonna use our toom for our Spanish rice, and these ingredients here are actually for the beans, which we'll get to in a bit, but I think we need to get going on the dessert because if this dessert becomes a flop, then I'll send Josh to the store and pick up a dessert. The hardest part of this, well, two kind of complicated parts of this dessert. I wouldn't say complicated, just completely foreign to me. We are making homemade waffle cones and we're going to shape them in the shape of a taco. So my mother-in-law has a waffle cone maker and she let me borrow it because we have made for Christmas stroop waffles with this. I don't think she's ever made waffle cones with it. I think it's mostly been used for making stroop waffles. So this is what we need. This is supposed to make 8. I'm gonna double it because I feel like we're gonna break a bunch before we get to what we need to get to. So that's why I'm gonna double it. And I am going to measure out these ingredients. This recipe that I found online calls for both cups and weights. And because this feels like it is kind of a technical type recipe, I'm gonna go ahead and weigh the ingredients out. But if you aren't comfortable weighing your ingredients out, you can still follow this recipe. And I have to figure out how, let's make the batter first. That can sit, and then we will figure out how we are going to shape these waffle cones into the shape of a taco. We're gonna start with egg whites. We are going to add 170 grams of granulated sugar. Vanilla. Now we're going to add 90 grams of flour. This is half the flour. We're gonna mix this together. Now we're gonna add our salt, our melted butter, the rest of our flour. This is our waffle cone batter. It smells incredible. Maybe for something like this, you should sift your flour and get any lumps out, because I can see there were a couple lumps in my flour. It smells really, really good. And then we need 2 tablespoons of waffle batter per cone. I just measured this out. I thought this was a 1 tablespoon scoop, and it is. Okay, that's our waffle cone batter. Now we need to figure out how we're gonna shape these waffle cones. It smells incredible in here. That sauce boiling away, oh, amazing. So it took me about 10 minutes to find what I was gonna shape this with, and I had to tie it down. This is my sealer for my Mylar bags. I went with this because it's got a square bottom, so I'm thinking it's gonna be easier to stuff and they'll sit up straight a little bit better. I have no idea. This is total experiment to me. So this is a pretty thick dough. So I'm going to scrape 1 and 2 tablespoons into this waffle maker right in the middle. I'm gonna close it. And this recipe says you need to cook this on a 4. This waffle maker does not have a setting on it. So we're just gonna cook it until the light turns and go from there. Now, I did read one recipe that said to also make your own homemade ice cream. We're not making our own homemade ice cream for this. We are just trying to make the waffle cone in the shape of a taco and then stuffing it with chocolate and ice cream and some chopped peanuts. But this is gonna be a process right here. Whew. That is so hot. I mean, it's not perfect, but not bad for the first one. Look at that. So what I need to work on is making sure that I have them lined up on this evenly. This takes some time. It took about 3 minutes to cook, which is gonna give me enough time to get started on the rice. I'm not gonna actually cook the rice right now, but I can get started on it. I wanna add more flavor to this rice than just cooking it in water. And so we are going to add some butter. I'm gonna do it right here so that I can keep an eye on my Instant Pot and my waffle cone. Let's start with butter because butter is delicious. And I'm gonna put it on the saute mode because I wanna brown the rice, get a good toast to it. Took me a second to find my butter. So we're gonna get that melting. This recipe did say for the waffle cone that we're supposed to grease our pan before we put the waffle batter on it, but I didn't do that and it came off just fine. So as they are cool, I'm gonna set them over here. I need to get a measuring spoon out. I'm gonna add some different spices and seasonings to this. Every time I make Spanish rice, it turns out a little different. I'm gonna start with a good amount of garlic. So I'm just gonna use the toom again, which that has a little bit of oil in it too, so that will help that. I'm gonna go with my trusty spices, which is smoked paprika, cumin, coriander. I should not have added those yet. I should have toasted my rice first. So maybe I'm not gonna toast my rice. All right, I'm not gonna toast my rice. I was going to, but I worry, well, maybe we'll try. And if it doesn't work, we'll just turn it off. Normally I would toast my rice, then add my spices. Got a little ahead of myself. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and just add my rice now. It's a little better. I don't want to forget the seasoned salt, so let me go ahead and get that in there real quick. And then the liquid that I'm going to cook this rice in is going to be our blended up tomatoes and chicken broth. So here is the fixings for the rice tonight. This is now toasted. I'm gonna let this cool. I have measured out 2 cups of tomato puree. I added water to make that 2 cups. We'll supplement with 2 cups of broth. If that's not 2 cups, I'll add more water, and we'll cook this in the Instant Pot. Over here, simmering away. Now we're gonna get going on the beans, because this is gonna be really easy. I'm gonna add some oil to our pan, and we're gonna caramelize those onions with some seasoned salt. And I'm gonna put that jalapeno in there. That's just for flavor. This is gonna take probably 15 minutes or so to cook away. So I'll just keep making the taco shells while this cooks away. Look at how thin I've been able to get this cabbage. This, I wanna be careful because this knife is so sharp, but this is just an update. I've been using this knife, I love it. I've been hand washing it and drying it right after it's washed. This cabbage is going to top our pozole. I just added cumin, coriander, smoked paprika, and some of our garlic paste to this. I'm gonna toast that for a minute, and we're gonna get our beans in here. So I have 2 jars of black beans. These are beans we grew in the garden last year. And we're just gonna get these in here. Now these beans are fully cooked, so I don't need to cook them through. I'm just gonna get them in here, stirred in, and then tonight, when it's dinner, I'll reheat them. I just wanted to add a little more flavor by toasting up some spices, caramelizing those onions, adding some garlic. I'll get the lid on this, I'll pop this in the fridge until dinner tonight. I just talked to my friend, and her husband gets off work between 5:30 and 6, sometimes a little earlier on a Friday. Today's Friday, happy Friday, if I didn't mention that earlier. And so I know what time she's gonna be here about. Probably between 5:30 and 7, something like that. But this kind of dinner is perfect. She's gonna text me when she's on her way. When she's on her way, I will get the rice going. I will heat the beans through. Our soup will be done basically at that point. We still need to shred the pork and add the hominy. I've never eaten hominy before, so I'm really excited about that. And what else? We have all the veggies prepped for the sides, except I need to slice some limes. And I need to heat the tortillas. I bought some, this smells good, just ice cream. I bought some, what did I buy? Getting a little tired at this point. What did I buy? Some tortillas that look really good, like a high quality tortilla. Now, this is the part that I'm a little skeptical on how I'm gonna do this. And I don't think I bought enough ice cream. I was filling this, Josh came in and he said, the house smells incredible. And I told him, I don't know if I bought enough ice cream, and I've already sent him to the store today once. I actually have a big pot of potatoes on. I have bacon in the oven because I am making a twice baked potato casserole for tomorrow for my mom and dad's surprise 41st wedding anniversary my sister's hosting. And I needed to make the potato dish. So I broke one, so let's give it a try. Delicious. I knew that was gonna happen, so that's why I made a bunch of them. How am I gonna do this? I think I'm gonna cut the ice cream. Is that crazy? Do not wanna use my nice knife on cutting the side of this. So I'll use my not as nice knife. Oh my gosh, I just had an idea. What does this look like? A half moon shape. That, my friend, was not written in a recipe. I just had that thought when I cut that in half. I think this is gonna work perfect. And they stand up pretty well. Now that this is going so easily, I'm thinking of all the ways you could flavor this. So many different ways, so many different ice creams. That was too easy. So I'm gonna go throw these in the freezer while I work on the chocolate portion of this recipe. In this bowl, I have milk chocolate chips and some semi-sweet chocolate. I'm gonna go get this melted. I kind of wanted a mixture because I didn't want just milk and I didn't just want semi-sweet. Now, while this is melting, I'm gonna go ahead and chop up my salted roasted peanuts. This is gonna add crunch, it's gonna add salt, it's gonna add flavor and texture. But I don't want them whole, so let me get this melted and this chopped. So I'm gonna microwave that chocolate for 30 seconds, stir it, microwave it for 30 seconds, stir it. Oh my goodness, these peanuts smell good. Okay, this looks good. My chocolate's melted, so I'm gonna set this here. I'm gonna get my chocolate. I'm not gonna add anything to this, so I'm not adding any coconut oil or any oils of any kind. We're just gonna use this chocolate just like this. Got some parchment paper and another cookie sheet. I think we're gonna need to work quick and in batches. So I've got my ice cream here. When I was chopping up these peanuts, I was thinking this would be so fun for a kid's birthday party because I think kids would have so much fun eating this. And I also think chocolate peanut butter ice cream in this would be fantastic. Strawberry ice cream with chocolate on top would be fantastic. So this is what I was also thinking. Choco tacos have ice cream ribbons throughout. I obviously didn't do that. What I could have done is lined the inside of my taco shell with chocolate is probably what I should have done. But I'm gonna try to drizzle some chocolate down into the shell because there is a space between the ice cream and the taco shell. And then I'm gonna dip it like this. Oh, it's melting the ice cream. Ah. Okay, so I need the chocolate to melt or to firm up a little bit. Josh is here, he's gonna unload the dishwasher while I do this. And I'm going to go stick this right in the freezer right now. I'm gonna hand this to Josh. Josh, can you go put that in the freezer? So maybe what Josh will have to do is help me throw these in the freezer instead of unloading the dishwasher. Ah. Josh, I'm gonna need your help actually just getting these in the freezer. Just like that. You can take that.
Skipping chocolate, boo.
I'll have to clean it. This is Josh's worst nightmare.
No, this is awful.
Okay, maybe I should let my chocolate not be so hot. So I just emptied this freezer here. We're working really quickly here, and I'm going to get this covered and I'll just throw this in the freezer right here. Peanuts cover a whole bunch of mess ups there. Okay. I end up getting a good system. I emptied my freezer right here so I can just go back and forth. I can quickly cover them with chocolate, cover them with peanuts, throw them in my freezer, and then the chocolate can start to harden and it's not going to melt the ice cream. So at this point, since I had a good system down, Josh is here. He's helping me unload the dishwasher, which was greatly appreciated because I wanted to be able to go ahead and clean up and load dishes as I had them, and my kitchen could be clean when my friends get here. And then after dinner, we can just put the dinner dishes in the dishwasher. So I appreciated him being able to help me. But when it comes to these Choco tacos, my friend, when she first mentioned I should make them, I thought, there's no way, I'm not making them. But then I was researching the pozole because I knew I was going to make that. And that recipe looked relatively straightforward, pretty easy. Not too complicated. It just takes a lot of time. The only complicated part was boiling the peppers, and you saw how easy that was. But it took a lot of time just because you needed it to slowly cook all day to get the beef tender. And so then when I realized how easy that recipe was, I thought, you know what? Okay, I'm going to try to make these Choco tacos. I used to go to my friend's house not every single day, but a lot when I was in college. And I would cook for her and her husband as a way to decompress. I would go over there probably 2 or 3 times a week, and I would make them dinner. And so I thought, hey, let's kind of bring it back to that. Let's go ahead and try to make my friend's husband's favorite dessert. Oh my goodness, those Choco tacos look delicious and super cute. They were a bit of a cluster to get done. There was chocolate and peanuts all over my floor. I still need to do a good clean on the floor, but for now, I just got a good quick sweep. I went ahead and I made the twice baked potato casserole. That's in the fridge for tomorrow. So good, so much easier than making twice baked potatoes. I cannot wait for that. Well, I'm not eating it. I just made it for the party that I am not going to. My sister asked if she can borrow a bunch of my table decor stuff, which makes my heart so happy that she's wanting to use that for that party. I already made the cakes. She asked me to make 2 cakes or 2 desserts, so I made 2 cakes. She asked me to make a potato dish, and she asked me to make chimichurri. So I'll make the chimichurri tomorrow, and I'll decorate the cakes. I have them in my freezer right now. I'll take them out of the freezer tonight, decorate them tomorrow. So the Choco tacos are done. My pozole is in the oven cooking away. I've got my hominy here, which the recipe said you put in with the broth and the pork once it's cooked for once you only have about 30 minutes or so. And I have never had hominy before. I love corn, so I'm sure I'm gonna like it. We've got our sides or our toppings all done. Our sides are almost done, but what I thought I would do, because it's only 3 o'clock right now, is I would get this washed up so I can get these cans recycled. I have 3 jars here, which is a little bit more than the recipe called for. It was either less than the recipe called for or more than the recipe called for. And when I was talking to my friend who's coming over tonight's grandma, she grew up eating pozole. She always said more hominy is better than less. And so I am going on the side with a little bit more. And then I did text my friend and say, bring over some dishes so you can bring some of this home, because this is a big pot. There's gonna be 4 adults and 2 kids. So we're not gonna go through this whole pot. And I know it's her favorite, so I want her to be able to bring some home. Josh really likes soup the first day. One thing about Josh is amazing is he will eat leftovers. I will eat leftovers. So leftovers rarely go to waste around here, and it makes my life easier because I can cook a big dinner and we can have it for lunches. But the one thing he does not love for lunch is soup. And so that's another reason why I told her, bring some leftover containers, because if I have a bunch left over, I'm gonna be the one eating it all. And that's a big pot. So normally I give a bunch of the dessert away, but she has quite a drive from her house to my house, so they would not make it. I'm gonna go throw this in the refrigerator. It's ready to go, and then I'm gonna go ahead and do a nice deep clean on my kitchen. I'm gonna go change into some comfy clothes. I'm gonna go hang out with my family until they get here tonight. I'm just gonna have the pork cook low and slow. I have it in the oven. Now, the original recipe said to cook it in the oven, but I had been cooking it on the stove. Now I have it in the oven, and this is gonna come together super quick. I don't think I'm gonna set a big table or anything. I think we're gonna eat outside. The high is not supposed to be very hot, and it'll be in the shade by the time we have dinner. So a big bowl of soup with some beans and rice and chips and salsa, I think will be delicious out on the patio. I'm saying I'm not gonna set the table, but maybe I will. You will see what I do, and you'll see how this dinner comes together. I wanted to show you real quick what this is looking like. That pork is not quite fork tender. So I want this pork to just fall apart. So it has quite a bit of cooking to do. I will skim some of this pork fat or lard off the top of this soup before we serve it. So you can see, even though I cut off quite a bit of the pork fat, There's still plenty to add lots of flavor to this. And I've tasted this broth and I absolutely know that that raisin additive to this was definitely, I'm gonna try to get some without a ton of the pork grease, but I know that that was not traditional, but it adds a level of sweetness. You could probably add like 2 tablespoons or 3 tablespoons of honey or brown sugar to get that flavor too, but the raisins just added interesting flavor. And the vinegar that we added earlier really helps balance the fatty richness of the pork and the smokiness of those peppers. Now, I'm gonna tell you, I did taste the broth right before I'm adding the hominy. My friend texted me and said she's on her way, so we're gonna go ahead and pull this whole dinner together. And I did add a little bit more vinegar. I added a little bit more salt and pepper, and I did add about a tablespoon of honey. I felt like it needed a little bit more overall flavor, and those few added ingredients take this soup stew over the top. This was delicious. I am so impressed with the simple flavors that go into this soup and how complex it tastes once you add all the toppings, which I'll show you all the toppings in a minute. At this point, I set out a big bowl of chips and salsa. And so we're gonna hang out and just have chips and salsa as kind of a little appetizer before we eat. I did end up setting the table. I did not put the bowls on the table because I left those in the kitchen so we can just dish it up buffet style. I do put some candles out here. It was literally the perfect night to sit outside. It was super comfortable weather and it was not chilly, but it was cool, and so you could sit out there and have this warm, comforting bowl of soup and be able to completely enjoy yourself, and it felt like a big hug. Now here, I've got the rice going, the pozole's done, it's just staying warm, we've got beans going, all I have to do is heat those through, and now I'm going to warm up some tortillas. I actually don't end up taking over this project, Josh does. I started doing this right when my friends got here so that the tortillas would be hot. One of the recipes I read, or maybe a couple of them, I can't remember, said that it's really good to dip your tortillas in the soup. And then my friend took the big chunks of pork and she actually put it in the tortilla, and then she was able to eat the pork and the tortilla and dip that into the soup, and it was so good that way too. Here we've got our hot beans, we've got our rice. I'm going to top the rice with some green onions, and then I'm going to show you what this entire dinner looks like put together. We've got hot tortillas, our Spanish rice, our beans, and then our soup. This is so hearty. I did skim off quite a bit of the fat from the top, but I left some, so we stir it in just to add that flavor. And then what goes on the top of it is yummy, yummy, crunchy cabbage, and that was so good. The crunchy cabbage just barely wilts in the soup because the soup is so hot. So you get this really good crunchy texture with the avocado and the radishes, the lemons and limes, and then I put sour cream out, and that was delicious as well. I don't think that's super traditional, but I love sour cream, and this is what my bowl looked like. I did end up putting more cabbage on it because the cabbage was probably one of my favorite parts, along with a bowl of beans and rice. And this was so fun. I thoroughly enjoyed myself on this day. The Choco tacos were a huge hit. Most of us just ate half of one, so we cut them in half and ate half. So I had a lot left over. So you're going to see another dinner party I'm going to have shortly. And my mom comes over and she's like, do you have any more of those Choco tacos? And so my mom and dad and a bunch of my other family were able to try the Choco tacos, and they were just a huge hit. So it was a fun day in the kitchen, being able to try some new recipes and have fun with my friends, sitting down to a delicious dinner. So friend, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to hang out with me in my kitchen. If you want these recipes, they will be linked down below for you. Just know I do taste as I go and I adjust. So I a lot of times use recipes as a guide. So I encourage you to do the same. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. And I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.